What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm pretty excited about my new comic book day picks this week because the 3 books that I'm going to overview are all series that are coming to an end this week, and that's going to free up a lot of space on my pull list for some of the other great stories that are coming out. So I don't want to waste too much time, but while the intro rolls, why don't you go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing new comic book day picks, and so what I'm going to do is give my top choices for books that are coming out this week. I'm also going to overview the most previous issues of 3 of those books, so that when you go to pick up your books on new comic book day, you don't have to try to remember what happened in the last issue. I'm going to help take care of that. And also I'll be using color-coded bars. They'll appear across the tops of the videos. And so you can fast forward through those sections, and that way if you're looking for a catch up on a certain book, or if you're trying to avoid any spoilers in a certain book, those color-coded bands should help you navigate through the video. So the first thing I want to go ahead and do is knock out the list. What books am I excited for this week? Well, On the Stump number 5 will be coming out. And that's been a great series. I've really enjoyed it. Somehow I missed number 4, but these books are really quick and light reads. They're a lot of fun, and they have a great sense of action and violence as well as drama. So it's been a good series so far. Really excited to check out the 5th one there. I decided not to overview Firepower number 3 this week because I just recently spoke a lot and did a lot of reviewing over the graphic novel and issues 1 and 2. So you can probably figure out exactly how I feel about that, but Firepower number 3 is dropping this week and I'm really excited for that one. And then there's a brand new number 1 called We Only Find Them When They're Dead. And this one I'm pretty excited about. It's Al Ewing, and I've never read any of his writing, so I don't know exactly what to expect there. But the art is being done by Simone Di Maio, and I'm a pretty big fan of his from his work on Power Rangers. He did the artwork for Beyond the Grid, and aside from the story issues in that, what I really liked about that series was how cosmic and vast he was able to make the backgrounds in a lot of the space scenes. And so I'm pretty excited to check out this new book from Al Ewing and Simone called We Only Find Them When They're Dead. So that's like my 3 honorable mentions for the week, I guess. The 3 books I'm going to overview are going to be Usagi Yojimbo Color Classics number 7, King of Nowhere number 5, and Bitterroot number 10. So without further ado, let's get into those overviews. Usagi Yojimbo number 6, Color Classics number 6. This was a great read. This is the origin story of Zato Ino, the blind swords pig. And this issue did not let me down at all. The first story is called A Quiet Meal, and it basically deals with Usagi trying to order some food at an inn, and Ino and his gang of misfits come wandering in. They're very unhappy with other people being in the restaurant, including Usagi himself. It seems to be something that bothers them. They kind of try to bully their way around, and ultimately Usagi stands up to them, and he's able to show off his samurai skills, and it forces them to run away in fear, basically. So that was a cool little story that introduced us to the character, but where the book really picks up is whenever we get to the second story in this. It's called Usagi Yojimbo, Blind Swords Pig. And this seems to be the true origin of the Zato Ino that we know from the current iteration of Usagi comics. The previous story, I would guess, was probably a very early story where he was just a throwaway character, but we get a pretty dense backstory on him in this story. So the story starts out, and we have Ino, we see him wander into a village. As he wanders into the village, he gets noticed by a lot of other people around him, and the As Ino wanders into the village, he's noticed by a lot of people around him. And they seem to have some sort of contention with him even wandering into the village. A few hours later, we're introduced to Usagi wandering into the same village, but all of the houses are destroyed, there's fires, everybody's in a state of panic, and they tell him that it was Ino the outlaw that caused all this havoc. So, of course, Usagi's concerned. He continues to wander down, he moves on from the village, and as he's wandering down the path, he stumbles across a blind pig in a deep hole. So he decides to help this blind pig out of the hole because he realizes he fell in and he needs help. He helps him out, and as the pig immediately notices that he's a samurai because he can smell the blood on his sword. So this already tells you that Ino has a certain attachment to one of his signature abilities, his strong sense of smell. Usagi decides to befriend him because as a ronin, as a samurai, his job is to help care for other people in the countryside. And so when he sees this man at a disadvantage because he's lost his sight, he decides to help him on his journey as much as he can. He wakes up in the morning and Ino is gone. He finds him down the road being ambushed by several bandits. And so, of course, Usagi has to catch up to him. He decides to step in and help Ino. However, before he's even able to draw his sword, Ino pulls a sword and is able to take down all of the bandits that are ambushing him. The interesting part is whenever Ino strikes down one of the bandits, a flyer falls from his shirt. And it's a picture of Ino the outlaw, which of course matches Ino, the blind swords pig that we see here. And Usagi realizes what's really going on. He's been trying to help Ino, and come to find out this is the outlaw that he's been warned about. So he decides that he can no longer let Ino stand as the man he is, and that he needs to turn himself over to the proper authorities. Ino, of course, is not interested in Usagi's merciful nature, and decides that, he's not going to go anywhere. Either he's going to lose his life or he's going to, he's going to lose his life or he's going to go free. So him and Usagi, of course, have to have a showdown. And we see Usagi and Ino clash blades. The result of that is we see Ino kind of fall, and then months later we cut to Ino getting a new wooden nose being carved and crafted for him. When he puts it on his nose, he turns around and he says that, everything is pine scented, but he can smell just like before. So this is an interesting setup for almost a superhero style story villain situation where we have one person that has affected the other person's life, and now they're definitely going to want revenge. Because throughout the story we saw how Ino valued his nose and his incredible sense of smell. For him to lose that it was devastating to him. However, he was fortunate enough to have somebody craft a new nose for him. Usagi Color Classics number 7 looks like it's going to be a blast. It looks like we're going to finally meet Tamo Ame from her original origin. So I'm really excited to find out a little bit more about her. She came up in the beginning of the current IDW run, but I really haven't got a lot of backstory on her other than her appearance in those first 1 or 2 issues. So this should be an interesting finale for the Color Classics. And like I said, I'm excited. I really liked everything that they've done with Color Classics so far, but the story's over and I'm glad to move on. King of Nowhere number 5 is out this week. Really excited for this. This has been a great series so far. I've probably enjoyed it more than I should have, but there's just something really fun and interesting about the acid trip that this run has been, and I really like what they set up in the 4th issue here. So I'm super excited for what's going to happen in number 5 this week. But let's talk a little bit more about issue 4 and what those setups are. So the book opens with the nuclear event that I think we all knew had to have happened at some point. And this issue gives us a lot of backstory on that. Basically, the government wanted to find out what the effects of radiation were on humans. And we also find out in this issue that Dennis was drinking with somebody the night that he arrived in Nowhere, or I guess the night before the morning he arrived in Nowhere. And so we get a lot of backstory on the man that showed up in the orange hazmat suit at the end of the third issue. He was there drinking that night with Dennis. He dropped Dennis off after they had went. Well, actually, what happened? They got drunk and they went back to the facility where they saw that everybody is being watched all the time, and they're being watched on these giant cameras. And so the government has been experimenting by putting medicine in the water to Nowhere. They have they've added radiation, they've taken away radiation. They've done a lot of testing and observation on Nowhere, trying to figure out exactly what the effects of radiation are on the human body. In this fourth issue, we also saw that, I believe this character's name is Joe, and he's basically a hired gun that's been sent to kill Dennis and make sure that nobody outside of Nowhere finds out what's really going on there. So he gets to make a pretty big presence in this issue, in the fourth issue here. We also get some backstory on Sheriff Tucker was born and raised in Nowhere, and he was born just after the initial nuclear blast event. When that happened, the people in Nowhere started to change, and we kind of get to see, I wouldn't say his childhood, but at least a snapshot of what happened directly following that explosion. We get to meet Sheriff Tucker's parents. We see that they were of a mixed race relationship, which explains a little bit about Tucker. It's also really strange how things were changing and evolving in Nowhere, and people seem to notice it, but at the same time, it's almost like they didn't notice it. So I do have some questions there and what was really going on with all that. How could you not acknowledge your growing fingers, or there's a guy we meet that grows like trees and stuff out of his head. So there's a lot of strangeness there. I mean, we see fish people and stuff. So Nowhere is a very strange place. And I do think it's a little concerning that people were changing so much and so dramatically 63 years ago, and yet it seems like nobody really questioned it. However, we have also seen that the government almost has this town like under a dome. They know who lives there, who comes and goes, when they come and go. They're watching everything. So I'm sure there's an explanation there. It's just kind of weird that nobody freaked out when their baby's eye disappeared or they started growing into a tree or something like that. So that was a weird situation, but again, we see everybody's at the house from the previous issue at Jed's house. When the killer Joe decides he's going to take him out, he starts firing through the window with a nail gun, and he does take out Jed's dad. At that point, our ragtag gang, they escape out the back of the house, but Jed's mom refuses to leave her husband there. And so as they escape out the back, they get into a rowboat. They're rowing away from the boat, and they see the house blow up. So Killer Joe has killed both Jed's mom and dad at this point. He's destroyed Jed's childhood home. And now, just as they arrive to the shore, they run into Sheriff Tucker's daughter, Ellie. And she's got a shotgun, but she's ready to find out some answers too. So that's an interesting little twist, because we would assume that she would side with her father, but it sounds like she's ready to go to war to find out what's really going on in Nowhere. So I'm really excited to see what happens in the epic conclusion that is King of Nowhere number 5. Bitterroot is a series, if you've known me for very long at all, you've probably heard me talk about it. I happened to get in on this series with number 1 way back in 2018, but if you've read 6, 7, and 8, then you should have a pretty good idea of what's going on. So let's talk more about number 9. Issue number 9 opens with Maeda working with the police. They're looking into what's going on with the Janu, who seem to be evolving. And we see Maeda kind of come to grips with not knowing what this is or understanding this change. Just knowing that she's supposed to be the expert on the Janu and she's at a loss creates a really interesting sense of tension, because the cops seem to know that she understands everything that's going on. So when she's telling them that she doesn't understand this time, it seems to be putting them on edge. And that can be concerning going forward from here. We also go down to Georgia, where we have Ford and Nora and Johnny Ray all down here, and they're trying to stop the hatred that's going on. They go into Hopeville, Georgia, and they're ambushed by these creatures, and they get separated. And so whenever we come into this issue, we're seeing Nora and Ford already being, they're separated out. Johnny Ray has disappeared. They've lost Berg because Berg is turning into a monster of sorts as well. And so they're kind of on their last leg. And I think that's a great setup for this issue, because it really put the pressure on some of the lesser characters to rise to the occasion so that they can set up this big grand finale we're going to get in the 10th issue. We also see Sylvester. He's running away, trying to escape Adro, who is, basically absorbs fear and hate and fear mongers in order to, gain more power. So, Dr. Sylvester's on the run from Adro, but Adro's constantly forcing more and more fear, and really trying to put the pressure on to get as strong as possible before they get to this final showdown. And that's where we also see Blink. At this point, we see Blink and Enoch. They go to Chinatown. And this is really interesting because this is something that was set up in the Red Summer special. One of the one-offs that we got there was Blink working with Wiley, who is, the Asian cultures. Like, basically, they're these monsters that they're fighting, the hate that they're fighting. It's represented in different ways to different cultures, but all these different cultures are fighting these monsters. So what we call Janu, or I guess what the Sangreers call Janu, like Chinatown, the Asian population, they refer to them as something else. We learned a lot about that in the Red Summer special, but basically Blink's friend Wiley from Chinatown, she goes to her for help because Blink understands that they need more help, and Enoch has already proven that he has, the older generation, they're too stubborn. They won't give in to each other. They won't work together. And everybody, including Blink, realizes how necessary it is that they work together right now. But this was a really big moment to me because Blink in the first series was kind of portrayed as like this progressive feminist, and the system was kind of putting her down through Maeda. And so Maeda also simultaneously was coming off as like, just this traditionalist that didn't want to see change happen. But then as the stories progressed, you find out that she was more, Maeda was all about the progress and the feminism, and she gave too much freedom to her daughter, Nora, who is Blink's mother. And so when Nora was sucked through the gate and disappeared for 5 years, it gave Maeda this new perspective that like she needs to keep Blink on a leash because she doesn't want to lose her the way she lost her daughter. And so where you see Blink kind of pushing against the old systems, you realize it's not truly the old system at play. It's Maeda being hurt and trying to reconcile, her past decisions, I guess, with the effects that they had. And so to me, this was really interesting because Nora coming back has changed the perspective on these two characters in particular. And then whenever you see Blink be able to use diplomacy basically to get help from another group, right there with Enoch standing next to her, it lets you know, I don't know, it feels like she's becoming a leader. Like Maeda could step down and hand over the matriarchy to Blink, and Enoch can go and retire because he's too stubborn. He's never going to get any more diplomacy done. but Blink has more than proven herself in this issue. And I'm really excited for that because that means a lot of different things could happen in the third story arc. So I'm excited for that. As the story progresses, we also see Johnny Ray returns. Just whenever Ford had decided he had been betrayed by the white man once again, our boy Johnny Ray did not disappoint. He comes back, he's got his armor, he's got some guns, and he is more than ready to go into this fight and help the Sangria family stop the hate and the racism and the prejudice. And that was a really powerful moment to me because we've seen with Black Lives Matter and everything else that's going on right now, we've seen a lot of alliance and diversity in the push for equal rights. And this book just kind of helps solidify that a little bit more by casting doubt on the white man and then having him come back and stand up for the Sangriers when they needed him most. So that was a really powerful moment to me. And this whole issue wraps up with Sylvester running from Adro and finally getting where he thinks he wants to be, only to find out Adro has been using fear-mongering techniques to lead him exactly where he doesn't need to be. He arrives in Hopeville, Georgia, and this is something that I thought was really incredible about this series that they pulled off very well in the first series as well, where you have this very large, diverse cast of characters that are kind of going through all these different plot threads throughout the 5 issues, and yet somehow at the end of the 4th issue, they all ended up in the same place, just like they have in the 9th issue here, to set up a great final battle. And I know that doesn't always impress everybody, but it's nice to see somebody writing with a plan. I'm the kind of person, I like a season of TV that tells a story. I like a run of books that tells a story. I like for the story to be complete. You don't have to tell me everything that ever happens to that character, but to end a story and leave me with an idea of where that character could potentially go, or, gives me a sense of finality with that character. That's something I really like, and so far Bitterroot has done that with both of these issues where it feels like they're actually telling a story and planning a season before they're actually putting pen to paper. And that's something I appreciate more than most people even understand, because that kind of sums up what this week is really all about for me. Like I said, I have 3 books here. These series are ending, at least for the time being. I'm really excited that they're coming off of my pull list. That frees up a lot of space to add some of these other great books that are coming out, some of these great stories that are being told, and that's what makes me really excited for the end of these, is I know where these characters are at. I can always revisit them later, but they don't have to be ongoing and people just trying to figure out a story to tell to keep them moving. Bitterroot had a strong audience in the first series. I believe the audience was there for the second series. I think we're going to get a third series. I'm really excited for the way that they're doing storytelling. I hope more books go this route. I hope that this is more or less the future of what we see. Not that there isn't space in the market for other things. I'm sure there's some reason we need ongoing books. But for me, I really like these tight 5-issue stories. I really like graphic novels, or even like the shortened graphic novel format. A good 100 to 150 page story, that's awesome. And I think that's where these 5-issue story arcs hit. I think that's where graphic novels hit. And trade paperbacks, anything like that. So that's what I really like here. What I would like to know from everybody is, which of these books are you reading? What are you excited for? What's coming out that you are hopeful for? And tell me, what do you think about comic book and serialized storytelling? Do you think that the ongoing series are important? Do you think that graphic novels are better? What is it that makes you excited about comic books that you really like to read? And let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, do all the things. Social media, I'm available under Nugui, Nuexguy. Same name as the channel, same name as Instagram and Twitter, so find me there. I'd be more than happy to talk about any of these things. They always make for great discussions, so I look forward to hearing from everybody. Until next time, keep flipping pages.